Yeah, got it. Right, we're on. So, do you want to start or do you want me to start?
You start.
Okay. So, what I've done this morning, I've opened up the Moodle and had a quick look in there, but I've also got the subject outline for ease of reference. And so I'm flicking through that. And I'm looking at, on page 2, the assessments and reflecting that the final assignment, the 50% one, is that you writing a policy yourself, drawing up one yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose my first question for you, I would love you to use the format that you find on the AC website for all our policies, because
Okay.
I think the format is very, very helpful. So if I may, I will share and talk about.
Great.
So here goes. Alpha Crucis website, and I'll now share a screen. And there, share. Okay, so let's me think of a policy, or you think of a policy. What policy would you like to look at on AC's website?
I don't know.
Grievance policy.
Application for. Great.
Okay, grievance policy. Here goes. Boom. What have we got? Complaints. And yeah, this is probably best. Complaints and grievance resolution policy. So I just love, and I used to do policies for a living, if you like, when I was a school principal. So this is the format, roughly, that people would make me write in. And I think it's so helpful. So let me just chat to you. This fact box on the right, I mean, it doesn't have to be, formatted on the right. It can be somewhere. But the content of it is so crucial, right? Who's the owner of the policy? If it doesn't have an owner, then it's actually going to die and nobody's going to feed it, because policies aren't to be written and just forgotten. They have to be dynamic living organisms that need to be fed. So somebody needs to own it, or a group of people, or a committee or something. What category? In this case, it's academic, community conduct, and grievance. So they've categorized it. It's approval. It's approved. So who does it? Who approves it? Who's it endorsed by? And related policies. Now, these are really fantastic to give you the context for that particular policy. You get a bunch of policies that talk to this, and this talk to them. It was last amended 28th of April this year. So as a snapshot, you've got all that information right up front. The purpose, the global big picture, the scope, what's, if you like, the context. That's another way of looking at it. The policy, really brief definitions, responsibilities, key stakeholders, related documents, a bit like the other policies that are related to it. And then you get into the procedures. So you've had the policy, which is really short and, arguably a little bit too generalized maybe to be of any practical use, but don't try and put procedures into the policy. The policy's got to be high level stuff. The procedures are where it hits the ground running. and you actually do stuff. And there you've got a flow chart for what needs to happen. Step 1, step 2, step 3 for the grievance, external dispute, international students. Now, it ends a little bit abruptly there, but you see there's a massive break between the policy and the procedures. And the thing I would love to emphasize is that if you can't measure the effectiveness of the policy, and there are loads of different ways to measure it, if you can't measure it, then it's actually no good, because when you want to come to, and every board will have its own review procedures, rarely annual. For some policies they may be annual, but most often biannual or 5-yearly, they'll need to be updated. So for an update of the policy, then you need to have the evidence from the measurements that you've taken.
So do I have to include in the policy like review dates?
Be aware. Oh, the reason I'm emphasizing that is that your policy's got to be measurable. Not that you will, but you know, hypothetically put down, this ought to be reviewed every 5 years, or this policy will be fine for every 10 years. You know, depending on what sort of policy you're writing, you will have how often it needs to be reviewed.
Yeah.
So I think that format, and have a look at some other policies, not necessarily on this website, but I do like the format, and I'm marking it. So that's my big take. I mean, the biggest mark is 50%, let's face it. And it is actually exciting. And if I can just rant a bit longer, and then I'll give you time.
Can I just ask a quick question before you rant? Sorry. In that fact box where it has status approved, what do I write on my policy, because it won't be approved?
Well, who would you expect to be approving it? What level are you writing this?
All right.
Is it going to be a group of teachers? Is it going to be the executive of the school? Is it going to be the board that governs the principal? Who is it?
Okay.
So you've got to think about what level your policy is coming out at.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm on page 5 and looking at the wording of the policy development. 50%, 3,000 word equivalent. Now there's loads of different ways of presenting a policy. I find those 5 points a little bit interesting, as in not helpful. Number 1 is good. Design and conduct quantitative and qualitative data collection and analysis to establish a rationale for your policy. Now, I'm asking you, since you've been a very busy bee in semester 2 this year, surely you have got some data from your other activities, TPA or a Res 502, that could easily have a nice synergy here. I mean, what I'm saying is, don't feel now, 3rd of December, you've got to go out and design qualitative, quantitative research methods. Think of something that you've already done that has a nice synergy with the readings you've already done or are doing for Res 502. It would make so much sense to multitask.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I'm just logging into Moodle to be able to look at the thing. I forgot all of our student numbers have changed.
What do you mean student numbers?
All of our student numbers have changed. So I've gone from A161330 to like, they've got rid of A's, and it's different now.
And that's preparation for Quercus, I guess.
Yeah, so it just meant I had to go find it in my email. Sorry, I'm in there now. Well, I've done, in regards to ED 541, I've done all of the forum posts and all of those readings. So, okay, you're on page 5.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think, were you finished your rant?
Nearly.
Okay, keep going.
But I'm coming into land. Number 2, define the constituents and the scope of your policy. And we've talked about that. You know, who's it going to impact? Who's going to have to implement it? Develop a rationale that incorporates a Christian or alternate school view. Now, to me, that should come quite naturally to you in a paragraph. Identify outcomes and measurable attributes to test the efficacy of your policy. So that will be, I would argue, in your procedures, not in the policy, but it's in the actually what you do. And how often do you seek to measure something? And this is to measure the effect of your policy down the track, not the setting up of your policy, which point 1 asks you to do. And then it says integrate your policy in a comprehensive format. Frankly, I don't know what that means. So what do? I go to page 7 and the rubric. So basically, I'm wanting a nicely formatted policy where I can navigate myself around. I'm not going to be hunting. What is she on about now? I want to know logically. Boom, 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 boom. So, and then look at the rubric. It wants a creative, well-structured, logical, relevant, coherent content for an educational policy based on research. And that gives you 50% of this assignment. Pretty straightforward, I would argue. Apply strategies to measure the effectiveness. Tick 20%, pretty straightforward. Understand the role of external professionals and community responsibilities evident in targeted policy development. I don't like the wording of that, but I think that's going on about what that last point was, namely integrating it into the context so that this isn't just a sort of aberration. It's actually sensible and it sits in the community, and the parent body would understand it, the teachers would understand it, the kids would understand it, and it's all going to be very beneficial. Boom. I don't think it's hard. I don't want you to spend long on it. I don't want you to sweat on it. I'll now stop ranting for a bit.
Okay, so effectively for this assignment number 3, I should have like the policy part, which is the like those dot points with the fact box and then the procedures underneath, and that's one part of the assessment. And then there's another part of the assessment where I kind of talk about that. Is there another part, or it should all be in one spot?
You just write a policy as look. I suppose you could do it. You could. I'm sharing again. Yeah.
Yeah.
The question says, select a topic and a context and develop a policy to address a perceived need in order that student learning and teacher teaching may be enhanced. So it asks you to write a policy. I don't think, now you may need to write, if you like, some notes, as it were, an appendix to include the explanation of your points 1 to 5 at the end, but they'll simply be sort of annotations to tell the reader why you're doing what you're doing. But the most important thing is the policy, and it itself will stand and make sense.
I just think 3,000. Sorry.
Go.
I think 3,000 words. I'm like, that's a lot.
I'm not going to measure. I won't count.
Okay.
It does say equivalent.
Yeah.
So, how many words equivalent is a diagram?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Seriously, I've never. If you do a scrappy little thing on the back of an envelope, sitting in a car park, then yes, I will count the words. But I know you won't do that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. If you stop sharing, and then we can go back to the other. Okay, so I've done the forum, and I guess it's probably best for me to start at the beginning with these, because the like personal reflection and then critical reflection will help me build just better reading, I think, for the policies.
Yeah, I was going to say something about that. To me,
Yeah.
those readings are. You see, to me, the rationale for this whole subject is when teachers get into the classroom for the first time, or even in their first few years, they're absolutely head spinning, keeping their feet on the ground and surviving. They're not thinking about policy. They're just doing and living. So my rationale for this subject is that, hey, you're there, you're an important cog in the community wheel. You have a part to play, not just in teaching, but you're vital. Your contribution to the culture is vital. And how do you do that? Well, by the little words, the little actions, you actually help build policy. You change culture by building policies. And so look at other situations, the Aboriginal stuff, this whole evidence-based language. I hate it with an absolute passion, as if you wouldn't have a policy which wasn't based on evidence. It's sort of a condescending nonsense. And then this whole tension of politics, and the book, you've got the book, haven't you? It's
like I'm over halfway through, and it breaks my heart that so many years ago, it's the exact same stuff. What I'm frustrated with, she was frustrated with. Like, that makes me so angry at education. Like, because her generation should be in leadership now.
Yes. Where have they gone? She's given up, right, and writes a book. Good on her. You do know, did you tell me Ken has died?
No.
So Ken has died.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. A couple of months ago, I think. Cancer.
Oh.
Very rapid. He was fine at the beginning of the year, I think, and then downhill.
Yeah.
I mean, there's another one. I mean, an incredible inspiration. But what did he do? Actually, what did he do?
Yeah. Okay. So
Talking of leadership, yes, there am I going through LinkedIn the other day, and I come across a fellow called Jeremy Metlis. Who's he? He's the principal of, and he's one of our students.
Really?
I mean, dear me, he's only been out a few years.
Wow.
It's incredible. I mean, what a job.
Yeah. That's cool. Okay, so I think probably one thing that would just help me, like, because I haven't really looked at a lot of policy stuff previously, but I will have by the end of this subject.
Good.
Like, because obviously what I'm for the personal reflection where it talks about your personal dynamic philosophy of education,
Yes.
mine would all be about inclusion, cultural differences. I don't know. That really is the main thing. Like, do they have policies of inclusion and policies of, like, where do I go to start to look for this?
Well, let me just say one thing first about this personal reflection, which is only 10%. 10%, 1,500 words. But it does say reflection analyzing the interplay of your own personal philosophy of education with any three samples of Australian educational policy initiatives from the last 10 years. Yeah. Now, in the past, I do recall it has been a bit of a challenge for people to find educational policy, but other people and you won't find it hard. There was a particular, and I can't remember, and I'll write myself a note, find that website on education policy. Basically, you're going to Canberra, you're going to the federal parliament, and you're digging up the policies. Maybe you go to Hedley Bear's 6 decades of continuous restructuring and go to the end of that paper and look at the most recent policies that he talks about. It's usually going to be related to, well, for example, you could go to the policy in Victoria of a couple of years ago, the Safe Schools policy that's been rolled out in Victoria, so-called safe. And the fact it was based on, school bullying, we've got to get to the grips with this, but really, there was another agenda, wasn't there? And we're not really on about bullying because we had a policy for that and it was quite effective, thank you very much. But no, the government had another agenda, so in they come and preach all their same-sex stuff and so on.
Well, the problem is that because I've got to do 6 Australian policies,
yes,
and they've got to be different. So, like, yes, while that safe schools one, it's probably better for me to use that in the second assignment because there's more to say. So, trying to find 6, that's my problem.
I don't think so. I don't think so, seriously.
So you think once I start looking, I'll find them?
Yeah, I will dig as well. After I get off this, I'll have a little look. And I'll try and bear in mind your thing of inclusion. Last 10 years. You see, you could.
The second.
Yeah.
The second assessment doesn't specify 10 years. It just says Australian Educational Policy Initiatives.
It does. That's good. I mean, just think about agendas. Government funding versus private schools. The whole message of measuring kids' performance, which seems to have taken the stuffing out of what education's all about. Where did that come from? Why has it gained such an avalanche of approval around the world? I mean, do you remember the chapter about SATs in England, and the students
Mm.
preparing for the. I don't know. I really don't know. Yeah. So, and then, so tell me before we go back there, what have you a policy idea you want to do for the main one?
No, well, I probably would. I mean, when you talk about relating it to, but the other reading that I'm doing, inclusion is just, that's my world at the moment, is inclusion, collaboration. You know, that's just where, because that's the other subject I'm doing, is I'm doing inclusive education. My Res 502 is all about like success, like how to feel successful with low academic learning, looking at low academic learners. So create, like, instead of success being academic achievement, success is judged by all these other things. Like that article by Haslett Harrison, Perception of Characteristics of Effective Teachers of Aboriginal Students. Do you remember that article?
No, sorry.
That I had to read it. I had to read it for this subject, EDU
Yeah,
545.
yeah, it's on number
Yeah.
5. Yeah.
Yeah. Like a brilliant article. This is what Indigenous students think is important, and none of it was in the classroom. You know, like all this. And I'm like, why is it okay for us to say that about Indigenous students, but you can't ask a white Australian what they think is an effective teacher and get that response and it be appropriate to cause change?
Yeah.
So,
I don't know.
yeah. So that's probably where I am in policy. It will probably be something around
Now, what about the
what page?
data? What data are you going to be able to mention, refer to? Have you frozen?
Oh. No, I
Um,
can still hear you.
yeah.
I was thinking.
Okay. So quantitative, qualitative data. When it says qualitative, you can use the mentors reports. You can use your own personal reflections of the schools you've been in.
Yeah.
And that's perfectly valid data. But do you have any quantitative data to underpin a rationale for your policy?
Probably not.
Yeah. As in kids' marks,
Yes.
assessment scores.
Yeah.
Could you get anything out of assessment scores without too much trouble?
Yes, but I'd have to know what I'm getting their scores for.
That's right. So, what are you trying to achieve? And therefore, could you find any data to back that up? Hard data, if you like.
Like, what are some examples of other policies that other people have written?
I thought you might ask that. I thought you might ask that. So, yeah, let's have a little go. So, what I'll do, Moodle is a great thing. So, EDU 545 and let's go term 1 this year. Stephen Codrington had them and massive class. Massive class. Okay. So the final assessment. This is number 4. Policy development, 50%. Here we go. Mobile phone use. I'm going to open up this one. And this was 2,700 words. Learning management system policy development. Use of technology and online learning in schools has become increasingly important in recent years. So in a particular Christian school, yeah, I wasn't the lecturer. Here we go. So this started off with about 3 pages of discussion, written like a mini essay, and then it gets into the format of the policy. So the title is Learning Management System Policy. Rationale: the use of information communication technology has increased significantly in recent years and provides teachers and students with a wealth of knowledge and extends beyond the walls of the classroom. So this student is looking at the LMS, Learning Management System, in other words, the school's equivalent of Moodle, and a policy for its use. Let me find you another. This one. This was 2,900 words. Again, he got them obviously doing a few pages of chat up the front, and then they get into the policy. I'm not bothered about how you format it. Food for Life, Christian Growth for Rock Primary School, Light Interchurch Council, Rock School, approved by Rock School Principal. Food for Life is a program that developed to recognize the importance of Christian growth, and support is available for students in Rock Primary School. Christ-centered approach. So it looks to me as if this is a policy for integrating faith into learning. Wow. Powerful. There you go.
Like, what data would they use for that?
Well, this one's got a survey that they've attached as an appendix, where they send it out to the community to, if you had your time over and would choose a Christian school for yourself, would you go for a Christian school, not a Christian school, or unsure? What is the most important lesson in the Bible? Do you think this particular school would benefit from, this particular church would benefit from a Christian school? So the whole rationale for setting up integrating of faith and learning. Big. Let me look at one more. Is that all right?
Yes, please.
This one's got, she got 40 out of 50. bright cookie she is. 3,000 words.
20,000.
No, 3,000.
Oh,
The rise of the too familiar relationships between teachers and students in Christian schools, a policy. The integrity of the relationship between teacher and students is the foundation of Christian learning. This relationship places a great emphasis on the teacher's role as an educator and a mentor. This is stunning stuff.
I can't see these, can I? Like if you blank out the title page, you can't send it to me.
I probably shouldn't.
They're on res. They're on the res one though. You've uploaded someone's.
Yeah, I know, but I'd probably ask permission. I hope I did. So, but look, I, in a sense, I'm a bit reluctant because we've got such a very narrow window. I don't want to. These people didn't. I don't want you to feel pressured.
I already do.
Well, don't. You've got, when I read this stuff this morning, I thought to myself, look, you've already got your head into a great policy place. That's the biggie, the 50%er.
Yeah.
I know it goes against the grain, but look, come on, you've been incredibly flat out this year. Let's just finish well. Let's just finish. And
well, I'm working Tuesday, Wednesdays for college and getting all of my students across the line and doing all that. But literally the 5 other days of the week, I'm studying at home or at the library. Like I'm not going to church. I'm just doing my best to get this done. So I'm working really hard, but I really don't know how realistic it is that I'm going to get everything done by the 14th. Like,
yes.
Yeah, you're saying yes. That's what day is it today? The 3rd. That's 11 days away, and I lose 2 days next week. So that's 9 days. 9 days for me to do 6 assessments.
What are the 6 assessments?
So I've got Res 502 proposal, Res 502 final one. I've got 3 for this one, EDU 545, 1, 2, 3. And then I've got my final one for inclusive ed, 6. Like I've got nearly 25,000 words to write.
Can you send me an email with a little table in it for your assignments and the sequence that you're planning to do them in?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking this one should come last.
My plan is to do, I emailed Josiah earlier for because of the final one for inclusive education, it's got to be a hypothetical classroom and you've got to talk about behavior, like education management styles. And so I wrote him, I said, this is I want to change the assessment to this so I can base it all around my prac, use some of the stuff that I had to do for my TPA and kind of do all that. And he's approved that. So I'm hoping to get that one finished today. Then my goal is to hopefully by Sunday, Monday, have my LIP proposal done and submitted. And then while I'm waiting for that response, I'll work on a bit of ed policy. And then once I get my response, I'll stop ed policy and work on my final. And then ed policy is what I'll leave till the very end. But I just don't think that I'm going to get it. So I'll still email you, but by the 14th, yeah.
Well, if it's by the 16th, what do you do on Monday and Tuesday?
Yeah.
What do you do on Monday and Tuesday?
Well, I'll have to Tuesday off.
Oh.
but
Okay.
Mondays I've been doing this.
So if you had 15th, the Tuesday, to wrap up this final policy.
Yeah.
And submit it first thing on the 16th. That's okay with me.
Because I'm not leaving everything to the last minute. Like everything will be submitted through as I go.
I know. Okay, that sounds like a plan, but I'd love to see a little table with your plan of assignments.
Yeah.
And what will get my attention is the quick one-liners on an email.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I actually, it's still open. Let me find it. I went through the research a booklet or whatever it's called. I went through that and I feel like I've just been able to knuckle down a better plan of what my lit proposal's meant to actually include, and all of that. So I feel like, and because I've done a lot of I haven't done as much as I want, but I have done reading for it. So I've just got to, I want to finish inclusive ed today, and then I can just put together this proposal.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Okay.
Let me dig up some links for educational policy, and I'll flick them through. If
Yeah,
they're
great.
not on Moodle, I'll put them on Moodle. I'll have a
Okay.
check, and if they aren't, I'll tell you where they are.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Jim. Have a good
Thank
day.
you. You have a great day.
I'll try. You too. Bye.
Bye.